Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for March 8th through 14th. This week I read 1 book, I watched 6 shows, I watched 2 movies, and I listened to 5 books. I feel like I should make an explanation here about social distancing or something like that, but really it was just a very chaotic week for me because I've been stressed out about the way of the world right now. The only physical book I finished this week was Fence Volume 3. This is a graphic novel series about this boy named Nicholas who is going to this prestigious fencing school on scholarship. And the thing is, his dad went there, but he didn't grow up with his dad, so he feels like he has something to prove. And then he's roommates with this boy who's like the top fencer, and I'm really waiting for it to be a romance between them, but it is a very, very long burn, hate to love romance, and they still don't really get there in this volume, and I'm going, are they ever going to get together? In order to keep his scholarship, Nicholas actually has to make the team, which is only 3 fencers, and there are a lot of fencers, so we're right in the middle of a tournament to find out whether or not he's actually going to be staying at the school. Obviously, you know me, I like my queer sports graphic novels, so I really enjoyed this. I just really wish that I got more of the story at a time. I think I would be way happier if the first 3 volumes were the first volume, if that makes any sense. On to the shows I watched this week. There were a lot of them. Some of them I only watched a single episode, so that explains that. Chad and I finally finished the 3rd season of The Expanse, and yeah, things changed heavily in the last episode. I believe this show has a 4th season, but there aren't any other seasons going to happen after that, so it'll be interesting to see how this show wraps up. I also caught up on the previous week's Survivor and watched the current week of Survivor, and yeah, I'm obviously bummed about who went to the island this week because even the show wanted this person to win, like the editing of the show really wanted the person to win. But they still have a chance because Exile Island, they could come back from it. I also got to see my best friend for the first time in forever, and we watched 3 episodes of the 2nd season of The Crown, which is something we do when we get together. Part of me wishes that we were able to spend more time together just simply so we could get through to the current season, which I believe has Gillian Anderson on it, but part of me is also really enjoying just savoring this show because it is so opulent and full of just all of this history that I don't necessarily know of these people, who many of whom are still alive. So I'm enjoying it, but I would also like to get to see my best friend more often than I do. Since Chad and I decided we want to watch the 4th season of The Expanse with his roommate, we had to find a different show to watch together, so we watched the first 2 episodes of The Man in the High Castle. This is a hard program to watch. This takes place in an alternate universe where the Nazis and the Japanese won the Second World War, and this takes place in 1962 in what we would call America, which has been divided between the East Coast being under Nazi rule, the West Coast being under Japanese rule, and then a neutral zone kind of in the middle-ish. Like I said, we're only 2 episodes in. He's seen at least the 1st season before. I'm really intrigued, but also there are moments where it just very much punches me right in the heart, so it's hard to watch, but it's still fascinating. To get something a little bit happier in my day, I watched the 6th episode of the 11th season of RuPaul's Drag Race. Obviously still very much enjoying this season. There are people that I really love and who are standing out. I really love Evie Oddly. Evie is such an interesting human, and I love that this show is talking about her EDS because I know a lot of people with EDS, and it's just good to see that type of representation. And then, simply because the preview started playing and we saw that Michael C. Hall was doing a British accent, we watched the 1st episode of Safe. I thought it was going to be a movie because I didn't really want to start another series, but even though it's not a movie and it is a TV show, we decided just to watch it anyway. So far it's about this man, who's played by Michael C. Hall of Dexter fame, who has these daughters, and one of them goes missing, and then he spends the episode running around town basically trying to find her. I'm always a sucker for a good mystery, so I would be interested to continue this, although now I feel like I've started so many shows and have so many shows to finish before I can go on to watching other shows. We also watched a couple of movies this weekend, the first one being The Whole Nine Yards. Yes, that movie from 2000 with Bruce Willis and Matthew Perry. It was mostly fun to watch this, to go back and look at Matthew Perry basically being Chandler Bing, but in this slightly different situation. And then we also watched The Spy Who Dumped Me, which was really fun. I mean, I love these 2 leading ladies, so it was very entertaining from that standpoint. Seeing a bunch of Europe was very nice. And the choices made for the action scenes I very much enjoyed. On to the 5 audiobooks I finished this week. This was actually the first of a 2-week readathon called Audiobookathon, which I am co-hosting. Before you freak out too heavily about this, 3 of the audiobooks that I listened to were a total of 2 hours long, so don't be too impressed. The first audiobook I finished wasn't even on my TBR for Audiobookathon, but that was The King of Crows, which is the last in the Diviners series by Libba Bray. Obviously, being the final in the series, there's not much I can tell you about it. I also really wish that I had more time to listen to this audiobook. It is a 22-hour audiobook, so I was listening to it at a faster speed because I felt pressured to finish it before moving on to my TBR for Audiobookathon. So I finished it in about 3 days. And this is a series that I absolutely adore, and now that I've finished it in audiobook form, because I've listened to all of these books, I am very much looking forward to finding copies of all of these books and doing a very slow reread of them, because they're just so full of interesting content and these different powers that people have and these different organizations and secrets and all of those types of things. As for the 3 very short audiobooks, that was The Twits, The Minpins, and The Magic Finger, all by Roald Dahl. The Twits was narrated by Richard Ayoade, who you might know from IT Crowd. The Minpins was narrated by Bill Bailey, and The Magic Finger was narrated by Kate Winslet. Out of these books, the only one I had read before was The Twits. It's about these 2 older people who are married to each other and just absolute jerks to each other and play these pranks on each other, and that's basically what it is. It was fun to revisit because I obviously didn't remember much about it besides Mr. Twit having this very big beard that he would just never clean, so that was gross. I also remembered him putting the little pieces of wood at the end of her cane to make her think that she was shrinking. I definitely remembered that from childhood, but it was interesting to go back and see all of the horrible things they did to each other, and then also how it ended, because I completely forgot about that. The synopsis of the Minpins, I actually wrote down while I was listening to it, is the devil tells little Billy to go in the forest of sin. He climbs a tree and meets tiny friends. This was very whimsical and the least mean book that I've read by this author. Then on to The Magic Finger, we have a protagonist who basically has this power of the magic finger, which when she gets upset, she will point it at people and something bad will happen to them. Her neighbors annoy her by going hunting, so she points her magic finger at them, and the next day for them is very strange, to say the least. The final audiobook I listened to this week was Over the Top by Jonathon Van Ness. This is his autobiography. It is very open, it is very raw. You will learn a lot of things about his life that I definitely didn't know. I very much appreciated how open and honest he was able to be about his life, especially because not every part of it is what one would see on television. Good day. Trigger warnings for sexual abuse of a minor, sexual addiction, eating disorder, as well as drug use. But I'm just so happy that this non-binary babe is thriving currently. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!